This World of Warships replay contains gratuitous scenes of carrier gameplay, which may be disturbing to some players. Viewer discretion is advised.
Greetings, folks. Iolair here. Thanks to Jimmy Jazz for providing the tongue-in-cheek opening narration for today's video. Yes, we have an aircraft carrier gameplay for you today. This match is courtesy of my colleague Astro Shooter, who introduced me to World of Warships back in August 2016. And he is sailing for us today the premium Tier 8 U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise. This is a Tier 8 domination match on Haven. There are 2 aircraft carriers per team, one Tier 6, one Tier 8, and there are also only 2 destroyers per team. Now, Astro's build in the Enterprise focuses on endurance of his planes, as well as supporting the torpedo bombers, and he is going to get quite a few torpedo hits, as well as rocket hits and bomb hits as well. He's going to do very, very well, and in fact, this match is going to end up being very close, quite near the end. And Astro is going to do some things that are slightly unorthodox in order to help keep his team in the game. Now, the majority of the allies are moving over here to the Bravo side of the map. There's only a couple of allies moving toward Charlie, the Gorizia, and the Arizona. And as it turns out, the majority of the opposition will actually be over here on the west side as well, although they're going to be slightly better distributed between Alpha and Bravo. Between Bravo and Charlie. Now, the allies know that both of the opposing destroyers are over here on the west side. The Mahan, which Astro did get an early hit on during the video, as well as the Shenyang has been detected over here as well. And in my experience, the stronger carrier players tend to focus the destroyers early to keep them spotted, try to keep them harassed out of the game. And that's, in my experience, very crucial. And it's also part of the reason I suspect that a lot of destroyer players really dislike carriers, because they can be quite heavily countered. The destroyers are quite heavily countered by carriers, and also they feel somewhat powerless sometimes because there's not much they can do in terms of countering aerial attacks unless you have a very strong AA destroyer against a carrier player that's not very good at avoiding AA, and those types of things. So generally speaking, I know a lot of players have a strong disdain for carriers in general, but destroyers and players in particular, I found are can be quite frustrated by them. Now, it's also my opinion that we really shouldn't see 2 carriers per side in games at any tiers. And I think this is a common refrain that we hear from a lot of players in the different forums. There's simply too many carriers, especially at low and mid tiers. It's not uncommon to see 3 Tier 4 aircraft carriers in some of these Tier 4 and Tier 5 matches, and that can be very, very difficult. And even though the individual planes themselves at those tiers may not be very strong, that just the fact that they're so prevalent and so common makes it very, very difficult to play a lot of ships with so many carriers in match. And maybe at some point we'll see Wargaming try to curtail the number of carriers that are actually in play. Now, the Allies gave up first blood. They lost one of their 2 destroyers. The Leningrad went down. I think that, again, that was on the over at the Bravo side of the map. Now, the Allies have captured Bravo, and then the Allies have now taken out one of the opposing destroyers. So they're even on the ships. And they have secured the Bravo cap, and they're about to secure Charlie as well. So they're going to get out to kind of an early lead from a point perspective, and things are going to stay relatively even for quite a bit of the match. But then things are going to get pretty tight near the end, as I mentioned earlier. Now, one other thing I want to call out is that the ally that took out the Mahan was the Nuremberg. And we're going to see that Nuremberg is really going to do a lot based on the results at the end of the match. He's going to be very influential in this match and really going to carry his weight as a bottom tier cruiser in a Tier 8 match. Now, the Allies have lost a couple of their ships in quick succession. The opponents did lose one more ship. So the opponents have a 1 ship advantage, but they, again, only hold they don't only hold one cap to the Allies three. So the Allies are going to continue to gain points fairly rapidly. Astro's coming in here to put in a strike on the Baltimore. The Baltimore is a significant threat from an AA perspective. Obviously, a radar cruiser, a threat to the destroyers and anything that could use smoke. And Astro is going to land a couple of torpedoes here and finish off the Baltimore. Now, the Baltimore has some very potent AA, so Astro did a good job coming in to try to help get the radar cruiser out of the match. Now, one thing I was a little confused by when I watched this replay was I wasn't sure why Astro didn't go over to put pressure on the ARP Myoko ship that's over in Charlie, but the Arizona, the Allied Arizona, is over there at Charlie, and it's going to keep the pressure on the cruiser. So I think Astro decided that he wanted to go after the Edinburgh. Now, one problem that we have with these replays, especially carrier replays, is that we cannot see the reticle. It does not get rendered in the replays, so we can't see that when Astro, where he is exactly aiming and when he's making these drops on the ships. He was looking to try to use the terrain to get in a drop in on the Edinburgh, but unsuccessfully. And there, the Arizona does take down the ARP Myoko ship over at Charlie, so it has been secured. But unfortunately, we do lose the Arizona in the process. So right now, the Edinburgh, the opposing Edinburgh is contesting Charlie, and then the Allies do take out the Shenyang. So the opponents now have no destroyers. So that's definitely working to the Allies' advantage. And it's only the Edinburgh that's in the Bravo cap. Now the Edinburgh dropped smoke, presumably to try to get into some concealment, but it looks like he outran his smoke and is now just deciding to try to make a sprint to get out of the cap, or at least dodge shots that are coming in on him. Astro's going to come in here with some bombers. When I watch this again, without seeing the reticle, it looks like some of these drops he's trying to make he's coming at a very acute or oblique angle to try to get these. And in fact, with that one, he just aborted the drop entirely. And then he's going to attempt another drop here on the Edinburgh. Now, the Enterprise carries the AP bombs. So he is going to land quite a few Citadel hits, including, I believe, one right here. In fact, he gets a triple Citadel hit and takes out the Edinburgh. So the Charlie, or the Bravo cap, has again been successfully defended. Now, the next threat for the opponents in terms of defending their caps looks like it's going to be the West Virginia that's making a move on the Charlie cap, and I believe that's where Astro is headed next. Now, the West Virginia, and also we are going to detect the Warspite that was moving down the east side as well, and maybe Astro is going to go after the Warspite first. Now, both the Warspite and the West Virginia are known for not having very good AA. The West Virginia is obviously the version of the Colorado class battleship that existed immediately before Pearl Harbor, and therefore was not, this is before her refit after Pearl Harbor with much better AA. The Warspite does not have very good AA and never has in the game, although her sister ship, the Queen Elizabeth, has among the best AA for a Tier 6 battleship in the entire game. And so in this case, the Warspite, there's not a whole lot that he can do to try to counter some of these drops that Astro is putting in. In fact, Astro's getting a third torpedo drop on the Warspite with the same squadron. So that's that speaks to the ability for his planes to survive the limited AA of the Warspite. Now, unfortunately, Astro is getting detected here by the Warspite, and he's starting to peel away. Now, Astro was starting to move, but one common complaint I've heard from carrier players is that the autopilot is very inconsistent and very irregular in how it behaves. And so even when you plug in a route for your ship to follow, to either get out of harm's way as Astro finishes off the Warspite with another Citadel hit, the ship will not always behave correctly. And it will, run aground or start backing up when you don't expect it to, and things like that. So I know for a lot of players, the autopilot is quite frustrating on these carriers. Astro's come in on the West Virginia. Again, he gets another Citadel hit. Again, there's not this West Virginia, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't have a lot of AA, so Astro's able to make these drops relatively easily without getting defended, without getting shut down too much. Unfortunately, again, this is another place where it looks like the angle that he's coming in on the West Virginia looks very odd. But yeah, he gets another Citadel drop there. So I can't attest to the how he's approaching these, because first, I'm not a regular carrier player, but secondly, because we don't see the reticle, it's hard to judge whether some of these drops that are being made are coming in at suboptimal angles or not. So he's come back out here again. He's looking to get pressure on the West Virginia, which is isolated, and try to get him down, because the West Virginia is also a threat to the two cruisers, the Otago and the Nuremberg. Now, as I mentioned the Nuremberg earlier, the Otago is also going to be very instrumental in the outcome of this match, as we'll see. So I'm giving early shout outs to both of these cruiser players who are going to survive late into the game. Now, coming to the overall tactical situation, the Allies have a decent lead, but Bravo is being contested, so they're only getting points from one cap. And they did lose their Lightning to the Prince Eugen. He basically was in a crossfire between the Prince Eugen and the Massachusetts. And in fact, in my opinion, the way that he had attempted to execute a strike on the Massachusetts, and I'm speaking to the Lightning player, didn't look quite right. Obviously, we weren't over there to see exactly what he was doing, but it looked like he was basically trying to chase the Massachusetts to try to probably get a torpedo strike in on him, but unsuccessfully. Astro's looking to keep the Charlie Cap defended, putting in a torpedo drop on the Prince Eugen. Prince Eugen, in contrast to these two tier-VI aircraft battleships that Astro had been going after, the Prince Eugen has excellent AA. And so that's not, and obviously the Massachusetts does as well. So those are two ships that I don't think Astro wanted to stay in the AA for too long, looking to just try to get a reset on the Prince Eugen, which he did. But the Prince Eugen is going to leave the cap entirely, and so Allies will start getting points from Bravo again. Astro again is getting more pressure, putting more pressure on the West Virginia. And I don't remember if he finishes off the West Virginia with this drop, but I think he's going to come close. No Citadels that time. But the West Virginia is burning and just about to go down. And in fact, you just saw there the screen shook. So Astro is coming under artillery attack from the West Virginia. He's now lost probably about 40% of his health. Looks like Astro doesn't need to come in here and get this drop in, as the Nuremberg, who took out the Mahan earlier, finishes off the West Virginia. So again, a good sign that that lowly tier-VI cruiser is carrying his weight and then some in this tier-VIII match. So Astro is up to, I think he's up to 10 planes being shot down, because again, now the opposing carriers are starting to go after him, because there are very few ships left on the map, and you have seen nothing yet with regard to the number of planes that he's going to shoot down. Astro's come back over here to defend Bravo, as the Prince Eugen is gotten into the cap. Now he's coming into with these torpedo bombers, and he came in bow on, which to me, when I first watched this, looked like not a good angle, but I think he correctly anticipated the turn of the Prince Eugen, and then again he sees the Prince Eugen is making a hard starboard turn here, and he's going to drop in on his rear starboard side, and is going to land at least a couple of the torpedoes here as well, to keep that Prince Eugen, or maybe it's just one, but to keep the pressure on the Prince Eugen. There you saw some other torpedoes also being dropped by the Allied Ranger on the Prince Eugen. So go back over, now looking at the overall tactical situation, the point spread is getting a little narrower. The opponents have done a good job to thin the ranks of the Allies, and so the ship counts are even. And the opponents have two very good AA ships, the Prince Eugen and the Massachusetts. Now, the Massachusetts, in my opinion, is not in a very good position. He should be much closer to be able to put pressure on the two cruisers that are, in fact, the Prince Eugen finishes off the Nuremberg, but Astro is able to get the Prince Eugen down. So they've kept the ship count even, but again, that Nuremberg did very well, as we'll see, based on the experience results at the end of the match. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the replay is that Astro is going to do some slightly unorthodox things in order to keep his team in the game, or at least provide some insurance. He is sailing into the Charlie Cap to at least keep the opponents from getting points from the cap, even if he can't take it, because aircraft carriers are obviously big ships. They're easily detected. So he's going to come under constant resets from the opposing carriers, but at least he will deny the opponents from being able to take carriers. Now, it is a little bit controversial what he's doing here. He's already below 50% health. It wouldn't take too many really good strikes from the carriers in order to get him down. Now, the Enterprise also has very good AA, and he's up to, well, now is in excess of 30 planes shot down. But he is going to continue to take more hits from the carriers while he's coming in and putting pressure on the Lexington. Now, you would think that why wasn't Astro going after the Massachusetts? And this is something that I thought about as well. And a couple of reasons I suspect that this may be the case. I didn't speak to Astro about his choices here, but first is that the Atago is doing an exceptionally good job kiting the Massachusetts, and the Massachusetts is already quite low on health. And so I think Astro, I suspected, felt that the Atago was doing a good job basically keeping the Massachusetts away from the objective, and gradually is going to burn him down. And Astro can focus his energy on the carriers so that the Atago is not the focus of the carriers and Astro is the focus instead. Astro is going to take at least one, maybe two more torpedoes here in the cap. But he has also really done a really strong job on this, what was a full health Lexington, and is going to end up finishing him off here relatively soon. Astro is up to 4 kills already, and is up to almost 175,000 in damage. With this strike, he just passes that, and there is Kraken Unleashed. So he is up to over 180,000 in damage. The Allies are up over 900 points. And in just a moment here, the Atago that I mentioned earlier and have mentioned a few times already, he is going to burn down the Massachusetts, and that is going to secure the win for the team. There goes the Massachusetts. Astro is going to get in, I think, just one more strike here on the Ranger, and that's going to wrap up the match. So a terrific battle. Thank you very much, Astro, for sending this in. Again, I know a lot of people are not big fans of carriers themselves, but this is a really good match. I think Astro and his team did very, very well. 197,000 in damage, 77 planes shot down, over 3,400 base XP. Again, the Nuremberg and the Atago, both shout outs to them for really carrying their weight. I hope everybody enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Please do leave your comments below. And as always, we hope to see you out there on the virtual seas, and we wish you happy sailing.